You've been the good person your entire life. When someone asks for help, you say yes even when you're drowning in your own responsibilities. When someone crosses your boundaries, you smile and let it slide because you don't want to cause conflict. When you're exhausted and need rest, you still show up for everyone else because disappointing people feels worse than destroying yourself. You're kind, accommodating, understanding, and endlessly giving. And where has it gotten you? Exhausted, resentful, taken for granted, quietly suffering while everyone else thrives on your endless generosity. Your calendar is full of obligations you never wanted. Your energy is depleted serving people who wouldn't do the same for you. Your relationships are one-sided because you've trained everyone that your needs don't matter. You're the supporting character in your own life, and you're tired. So desperately tired. Welcome to the villain era, where you'll discover why being too nice is destroying your life, how to set ruthless boundaries without guilt, and the exact framework for prioritizing yourself unapologetically. This isn't about becoming cruel or toxic. It's about finally being honest. It's about valuing your time, energy, and peace as much as you value everyone else's. It's about understanding that you can be the villain in someone else's story and still be the hero in your own. Let's start with a brutal truth. Nice people finish last not because the world is unfair, but because they've made themselves last. You've spent years training people that your boundaries are negotiable, your time is free, and your needs are optional. You've taught everyone around you that if they just push a little harder, guilt trip a little more, or express disappointment, you'll cave. And you do. Every time. This pattern didn't happen overnight. It started young. Maybe you learned that being good earned love and being difficult earned rejection. Maybe you watched a parent sacrifice endlessly and absorbed the message that self-sacrifice equals virtue. Maybe you discovered that saying yes kept you safe from anger, disappointment, or abandonment. Whatever the origin, you developed a core belief. Your worth is measured by how much you give and how little you need. This belief is killing you. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, steadily, like water eroding stone. Each time you say yes when you mean no, you chip away at your integrity. Each time you prioritize someone else's comfort over your own well-being, you teach yourself that you don't matter. Each time you avoid conflict at all costs, you abandon yourself. And the cost of this chronic self-abandonment is enormous. Here's what chronic people-pleasing actually costs you. First, your time. Hours, days, years of your life spent on obligations you never wanted, helping people who wouldn't reciprocate, attending events you hate, and doing favors that benefit others while draining you. You can't buy back time. Every hour spent people-pleasing is an hour stolen from your actual goals, relationships, and joy. Second, your energy. Emotional and physical exhaustion from constantly accommodating, managing other people's feelings, avoiding conflict, and suppressing your own needs. You're running on fumes because you pour everything into everyone else. Then you wonder why you're anxious, depressed, or burnt out. You're not broken. You're depleted. Third, your relationships. Ironically, being too nice ruins relationships. You attract users who sense your inability to say no. You repel healthy people who want mutuality, not a martyr. Your closest relationships become resentful because you give until you're empty, then explode or withdraw. Genuine intimacy requires honesty, and you're hiding your truth constantly. Fourth, your self-respect. Every time you betray yourself by saying yes when you mean no, you lose trust in yourself. You become someone who can't be counted on to protect their own interests. You develop contempt for yourself, which manifests as chronic guilt, shame, and the nagging feeling that you're living wrong. Fifth, your goals and dreams. People-pleasers rarely achieve their ambitions because they're too busy fulfilling everyone else's. Your dreams require selfish focus. But you can't be selfish because you're addicted to being needed. So your potential dies while you help others build their dreams. Let me share what your life looks like right now if you're a chronic people-pleaser. Your phone buzzes with requests and your stomach tightens because you know you'll say yes even though you want to say no. Your calendar is packed with commitments you regret making, but you won't cancel because you don't want to disappoint anyone. You fantasize about canceling everything and disappearing, but you never do because the guilt would crush you. You're exhausted but can't rest because someone might need something. You're resentful but can't express it because that would make you the bad guy. You give advice everyone ignores but keeps asking for. You help people who never reciprocate. You're everyone's first call in a crisis and no one's priority otherwise. You smile through gritted teeth and say, "I'm fine," when you're falling apart. This is not sustainable. This is not virtuous. This is self-destruction disguised as kindness. And it has to stop. Not gradually. Not eventually. No. Enter your villain era. This is the transformative period when you stop being the good person who everyone takes advantage of and become the person who protects their peace, time, and energy ruthlessly. When you set boundaries that make you the villain in stories told by people who benefited from your boundarylessness. When you prioritize yourself so unapologetically that people who expected your endless availability call you selfish. When you say no without explanation or guilt, and mean it. In this audiobook, you'll learn what the villain era actually means and why it's not what you think, the psychology behind people pleasing and how to break the pattern, why being too nice destroys relationships and success, the exact mindset shift required to enter your villain era, how to set ruthless boundaries that protect your peace, the art of saying no and actually meaning it, dealing with guilt and pushback from people who benefited from the old you, and building a life where you come first. But I want to be clear about what this isn't. This isn't permission to become abusive, manipulative, or cruel. Those behaviors are toxic, not empowering. This isn't about hurting people for sport or revenge. That's not strength, that's weakness. This isn't about becoming inconsiderate or selfish in ways that harm others unnecessarily. There's a massive difference between healthy self-prioritization and narcissism. The villain era is about this: valuing yourself as much as you value others, setting boundaries that protect your well-being, saying no to what drains you and yes to what serves you, being honest instead of nice, prioritizing your peace over people-pleasing, and becoming comfortable being the villain in stories told by people who miss having unlimited access to you. Here's the paradigm shift. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't need to be available to everyone. You don't need to say yes to keep people around. The people who leave when you set boundaries were never there for you. They were there for what you provided. And losing them isn't loss. It's liberation. Your transformation begins now. Not when you feel ready. Not when it's comfortable. Not when everyone approves. No. Because every day you delay entering your villain era is another day you abandon yourself. And you've done that long enough. Let's build the life where you're the main character, not the supporting role. Chapter 1. What is the villain era? Redefining selfishness. The villain era is everywhere on social media. TikTok is flooded with videos of people declaring, "I'm in my villain era," while setting boundaries, cutting off toxic people, or prioritizing themselves. But most people misunderstand what this actually means. They think it's about being mean, petty, or vengeful. It's not. The villain era is one of the most powerful psychological transformations you can undergo, and understanding it correctly is crucial. Let's define the villain era precisely. The villain era is a conscious period of radical self-prioritization where you unapologetically put your needs, peace, and well-being first, even when doing so makes you the villain in other people's stories. It's called the villain era not because you become villainous, but because people who benefited from your self-sacrifice will paint you as selfish, difficult, or changed when you stop accommodating them. Here's the key insight. You're not actually becoming a villain. You're becoming unavailable to people who want to use you. And to users, healthy boundaries look like hostility. When you've been endlessly giving, simply stopping feels like taking. When you've been chronically available, Basic boundaries feel like rejection. When you've been the yes person, a single no feels like betrayal. The villain era is a reframe. Instead of feeling guilty for protecting yourself, you embrace being the villain in stories told by people whose expectations you no longer meet. Instead of shrinking from the selfish label, you recognize that self-care and selfishness are different, and you're done pretending they're the same. Let me share what triggered the villain era movement. We live in a culture that glorifies self-sacrifice, especially for women and people socialized as caregivers. Be selfless. Put others first. Don't be difficult. Be the bigger person. These messages create generations of people who martyrdom themselves for validation. Meanwhile, the people who set boundaries, prioritize themselves, and say no are achieving their goals, living peacefully and thriving. The cultural awakening happened when people realized the martyrs are miserable while the selfish people are happy. The accommodating people are exhausted while the boundaried people have energy. The nice people are taken advantage of while the direct people are respected. This created cognitive dissonance. We were told being nice leads to good things, but reality showed that being nice leads to being used. The villain era is the collective rejection of toxic niceness in favor of honest boundaries. It's millions of people simultaneously deciding they're done sacrificing themselves on the altar of other people's comfort. They're entering their villain era, and it's changing their lives. Now let's discuss what the villain era looks like in practice. It's saying no to the friend who only calls when they need something. It's canceling plans without a detailed excuse when you need rest. It's not responding to every text immediately because you don't owe constant availability. It's choosing your peace over keeping the peace. It's ending relationships that drain you, even if the other person isn't technically doing anything wrong. It's prioritizing your goals over social obligations. It's spending money on yourself without guilt. It's taking up space unapologetically. It's being honest when honesty makes you unlikable. Here's what the villain era is not. It's not being cruel to people who were kind to you. It's not ghosting people without explanation when you've made commitments. It's not becoming manipulative or playing mind games. It's not lacking empathy or consideration. It's not hurting people for fun or revenge. Those behaviors aren't villain era. They're just being an asshole. There's a difference. The villain era operates on these principles. First, your peace is non-negotiable. Nothing and no one is worth your mental health. If protecting your peace makes you the villain, so be it. Second, boundaries without guilt. You don't need to justify protecting yourself. No is a complete sentence. Third, reciprocity matters. You only give to people who give back. One-sided relationships end. Fourth, honesty over niceness. You'd rather be respected for your truth than liked for your fakeness. Fifth, your needs are equal to others. Not more important, but definitely not less important. Sixth, quality over quantity in relationships. You'd rather have 3 real friends than 30 users. Seventh, comfort zones end. You're done shrinking to make others comfortable. Eighth, your time is valuable. You treat it accordingly. Ninth, disappointing people is survivable. You'll disappoint people and live. 10th, you can't pour from an empty cup. Self-care isn't selfish. It's necessary. Let me share a story about entering the villain era. Sarah was the ultimate people pleaser. She helped everyone, said yes to every request, managed everyone's emotions, avoided all conflict. She was exhausted, resentful, and deeply unhappy. But she couldn't stop because being needed felt like being loved. Then her sister asked her to babysit for the 5th weekend in a row. Sarah had plans. For once, she wanted to rest. But her sister used the usual guilt trip. I thought I could count on you. Guess I was wrong. Old Sarah would have canceled her plans and babysat. Villain era Sarah said, You can count on me when I'm available. I'm not available this weekend. You need to find other childcare. Her sister was shocked, called her selfish, told their mother, who also called Sarah selfish. Sarah felt terrible. The guilt was crushing. She almost apologized. But then she realized she didn't do anything wrong. She stated a boundary. Her crime was being unavailable. And if unavailability makes her a villain, she'll be the villain. She didn't apologize. She held the boundary. Her sister found other childcare and stopped asking Sarah every weekend because she learned Sarah wasn't automatically available. That's the villain era. Setting a boundary, being called selfish, feeling guilt, but not caving, letting people be disappointed, tolerating being the villain in their story. Because your peace matters more than their approval. As we close this chapter, understand this. The villain era isn't permanent. It's a necessary phase of boundary building and self-prioritization. Eventually, you'll establish enough boundaries that they become normal, and you won't feel like a villain anymore. You'll just be someone with healthy self-respect. But first, you have to be willing to be the villain. Now let's explore why you became a people pleaser in the first place. Chapter 2. The psychology of people-pleasing. Why you do it. You didn't wake up one day and decide to sacrifice yourself endlessly. People-pleasing developed over years through experiences, conditioning, and adaptive strategies that once protected you but now imprison you. Understanding the psychology behind your people-pleasing is crucial because you can't change what you don't understand. In this chapter, we'll explore the root causes and maintaining factors of chronic people-pleasing. Let's start with the origins. Most people-pleasers develop this pattern in childhood through one or more of these experiences. First, conditional love. You learned that affection, attention, or approval came only when you were good, helpful, or accommodating. Being difficult, needy, or having boundaries resulted in withdrawal of love, anger, or punishment. This taught you, my worth depends on what I do for others. Second, emotional responsibility. You were parentified, meaning you had to manage adults' emotions or take care of others' needs before your own. Maybe you had a depressed parent you tried to cheer up, an angry parent you tried to placate, or siblings you had to care for. This taught you, other people's feelings are my responsibility. Third, conflict avoidance reinforcement. Your family or environment couldn't handle conflict healthily. Expressing needs or disagreeing caused explosions, silent treatment, or chaos. You learned that keeping the peace at all costs was survival. This taught you, conflict is dangerous, accommodation is safe. Fourth, praise for self-sacrifice. You were rewarded with attention, pride, or validation specifically when you sacrificed yourself. Being the helper, the giver, the accommodating child earned special status. This taught you, selflessness equals worthiness. Fifth, punishment for boundaries. When you did set boundaries or prioritize yourself, you faced guilt-tripping, shaming, or being called selfish. This taught you, boundaries are bad, needs are wrong. These experiences created core beliefs that drive people-pleasing. Belief 1. I am only worthy if I'm useful to others. Belief 2. Other people's needs are more important than mine. Belief 3. Conflict means abandonment. Belief 4. Saying no makes me a bad person. Belief 5. My value comes from what I do, not who I am. These beliefs operate unconsciously. You don't think them explicitly. You just feel compulsive anxiety when you consider saying no, intense guilt when you prioritize yourself, and deep shame when you're called selfish. These feelings are so overwhelming that accommodating feels easier than facing them. So you keep people-pleasing to avoid the emotional pain of disappointing people. Now let's discuss the psychological mechanisms that maintain people-pleasing. First, intermittent reinforcement. Occasionally, your people-pleasing gets rewarded with appreciation, gratitude, or validation. These intermittent rewards are incredibly addictive, like a slot machine. Most times you get nothing, but occasionally you hit the jackpot of feeling valued. This keeps you pulling the lever endlessly. Second, anxiety reduction. In the short term, saying yes reduces anxiety. You avoid the feared consequence of disappointing someone. This immediate anxiety relief reinforces the behavior, even though long-term consequences are terrible. You're sacrificing future well-being for present comfort. Third, identity fusion. You fused your identity with being the helpful, nice, accommodating person. Setting boundaries threatens your entire sense of self. Who are you if you're not the person everyone can count on? This identity crisis makes boundaries feel impossible. Fourth, social proof. You're surrounded by other people pleasers, especially if you're in communities that glorify self-sacrifice. Your behavior is normalized. Everyone you know acts the same way. This makes it hard to see there's another option. Fifth, sunk cost fallacy. You've invested so much in being this person for everyone that changing feels like admitting it was all wasted. You've sacrificed so much already. Surely you can't stop now. This fallacy traps you in the pattern. Let me share the neuroscience of people-pleasing. When you anticipate saying no, your amygdala, the brain's fear center, activates. This triggers a stress response, elevated cortisol, racing heart, anxiety. Your brain treats potential conflict or disappointment like a threat to survival because, evolutionarily, social rejection could mean death. Modern brains still carry this ancient wiring. When you say yes despite wanting to say no, you avoid triggering the amygdala. Short-term relief. But you activate different stress pathways. Chronic stress from overcommitment, resentment from self-betrayal, and depletion from giving endlessly. This chronic stress damages health, mood, and relationships more than the acute stress of occasionally saying no would. The irony. You're choosing chronic misery to avoid acute discomfort. You're destroying your life to avoid a few uncomfortable conversations. When you understand this, the choice becomes clear. Feel uncomfortable sometimes by setting boundaries, or feel miserable constantly by having none. Here's the attachment theory perspective. People pleasers often have anxious attachment styles developed from inconsistent caregiving. You learn that love is conditional and unpredictable. To secure it, you became hypervigilant to others' needs and excessively accommodating. Even in adulthood, you're trying to earn secure attachment through perfect behavior. But this strategy fails because healthy relationships require authenticity, not performance. Now let's discuss the types of people pleasers. First, the fixer. You solve everyone's problems, give endless advice, and rescue people from consequences. You derive worth from being needed for your help. Second, the harmonizer. You manage everyone's emotions, mediate conflicts, and ensure everyone's happy. You derive worth from keeping the peace. Third, the giver. You give time, money, resources endlessly. You derive worth from generosity. Fourth, the yes person. You agree with everyone, accommodate every request, never disagree. You derive worth from being agreeable. Most people pleasers are combinations of these types, but all share core features: external validation seeking, boundary deficiency, compulsive caretaking, and chronic self-abandonment. As we close this chapter, recognize that understanding why you people please doesn't immediately stop the behavior, but it creates space between automatic reaction and conscious choice. When you feel the compulsion to say yes, you can pause and think, is this genuine desire or conditioned response? Am I helping from abundance or seeking validation? This awareness is the first step toward change. Now let's explore exactly why being too nice destroys your life. Chapter 3. Why being too nice destroys you. The hidden costs being nice sounds virtuous. How could kindness, generosity, and accommodation be bad? The truth is, they're not bad in moderation. They're toxic when they're compulsive, one-sided, and self-destructive. Being too nice doesn't just limit your success. It actively destroys your relationships, career, health, and sense of self. Let's explore exactly how. First, being too nice destroys your relationships. This seems counterintuitive. Shouldn't being nice make relationships better? No. Here's why. Genuine relationships require honesty and boundaries. When you're too nice, you're not honest. You say you're fine when you're not. You agree when you disagree. You hide resentment behind a smile. This creates false intimacy. The other person thinks they know you, but they only know your performance. Over time, resentment builds. You give endlessly while they take comfortably. You accommodate while they demand. Eventually, you explode in passive-aggressive comments or sudden withdrawal. The other person is confused. From their perspective, everything was fine. Then suddenly you're angry. They don't realize you've been silently suffering and they've been unknowingly taking advantage because you never set boundaries. Or worse, you attract users. People who specifically seek out nice people to exploit. They sense your inability to say no and consciously take advantage. Your relationships become full of takers while givers avoid you because they want mutuality, not martyrdom. You end up surrounded by people who love what you do for them but don't actually love you. Even in healthy relationships, being too nice creates problems. Your partner wants to know the real you, but you're too busy managing their feelings and accommodating their preferences. Your friends want genuine connection, but you're performing the role of eternal helper. Ironically, being too nice prevents intimacy because real intimacy requires showing your whole self, including your needs, boundaries, and imperfections. Second, being too nice destroys your career. In professional settings, nice people are passed over for promotions, paid less than assertive colleagues, and given more work without more compensation. Why? Because organizations reward results and value, not niceness. When you can't negotiate, you accept low offers. When you can't set boundaries, you get dumped with extra work. When you can't advocate for yourself, you get overlooked. Your niceness is exploited. You're the person who stays late to help others meet deadlines while your own projects suffer. You're the one who covers for colleagues without reciprocation. You say yes to every request from management while more assertive people say no to protect their bandwidth. They get promoted because they deliver excellent results by protecting their focus. You get burned out because you dilute your efforts across everyone's priorities. Moreover, being too nice makes you seem weak. Leadership requires making tough decisions, having difficult conversations, and setting clear boundaries. If you're known as the person who can't say no or handle conflict, you won't be given leadership opportunities. Nice people are seen as followers, not leaders. Assertive people who protect their interests are respected and advanced. Third, being too nice destroys your health. The chronic stress of people-pleasing manifests physically. Constant cortisol elevation from anxiety about disappointing people damages your immune system, raises blood pressure, disrupts sleep, and increases inflammation. You're literally sacrificing your health to avoid conflict. The physical exhaustion from doing too much for too many people leads to burnout. Chronic fatigue, depression, anxiety disorders, and stress-related illnesses plague chronic people-pleasers. You're so busy taking care of everyone else that you neglect your own basic needs: sleep, exercise, nutrition, medical care, rest. Your body breaks down from neglect and overextension. Fourth, being too nice destroys your goals and dreams. Your ambitions require selfish focus. You need to say no to distractions and protect your time for what matters to you. But you can't. Every request pulls you away from your goals. Every obligation steals hours from your aspirations. Years pass and you've made no progress on what you actually want because you've been too busy helping everyone else build their dreams. You watch less nice people achieve exactly what you wanted while you stayed stuck. They weren't smarter or more talented. They were more ruthless about protecting their time and energy. They said no to good opportunities to say yes to great ones. You said yes to everything and excelled at nothing. Fifth, being too nice destroys your self-respect. Every time you betray yourself by saying yes when you mean no, you lose respect for yourself. You become someone who can't be trusted to protect their own interests. You develop a deep, gnawing self-contempt that manifests as depression, anxiety, and the constant feeling that you're living wrong. You stop listening to your own intuition because you've overridden it so many times. You don't know what you actually want because you're so focused on what everyone else wants. You lose your sense of identity. You become a collection of roles you play for others. The helper, the fixer, the nice one. But who are you when no one needs anything? You don't know. And that's terrifying. Let me share a story that illustrates the total cost. Marcus was the nicest guy at his company. Always helping. Never saying no. Working extra hours. Covering for colleagues. Volunteering for unpopular projects. Everyone loved Marcus because Marcus made their lives easier. He thought this would lead to recognition and advancement. Instead, he watched less accommodating colleagues get promoted while he stayed stuck. He asked his manager why. The feedback devastated him. You're too nice. You say yes to everything, so you're spread too thin. Your work quality has declined because you're doing too much. We need someone who can prioritize ruthlessly and deliver excellence, not someone who does everything adequately. Marcus realized his niceness was perceived as weakness and poor judgment. He'd sacrificed his career advancement to be liked. Meanwhile, his health was failing from stress. His marriage was strained because he had no energy left after giving everything at work. His own goals, writing a book, were abandoned because he had no time. Being too nice had cost him everything that mattered while earning him nothing but being liked by people who took advantage of him. Marcus entered his villain era. He started saying no. He stopped covering for lazy colleagues. He focused on his core responsibilities and did them excellently. He set strict boundaries around his time. People were shocked. Some called him selfish. But within a year, he was promoted, his health improved, his marriage strengthened, and he finished his book. Being the villain saved his life. As we close this chapter, calculate your own costs. What does being too nice cost you in relationships, career, health, goals, and self-respect? When you see the total price, you'll understand why entering your villain era isn't selfish. It's survival. Now let's explore the exact mindset shift required to make this transformation. Chapter 4. The Villain ERA Mindset Shift. Rewiring your thinking entering your villain era requires more than behavioral changes. It requires fundamental shifts in how you think about yourself, others, and your obligations. These mindset shifts are the foundation that makes boundary setting possible. Without them, you'll set boundaries but cave under pressure. With them, you'll hold boundaries even when it's uncomfortable. Let's explore each critical shift. Mindset Shift 1. From external to internal validation. Currently, your worth comes from others' approval. You feel good when people praise you and terrible when they're disappointed. This external validation keeps you trapped because you'll do anything to maintain approval, including sacrificing yourself. The shift. Your worth is inherent, not earned. You were born worthy. Your value doesn't increase when you help or decrease when you say no. Other people's opinions of you are data, not truth. Some people will always disapprove of you. You can't control that. You can only control whether you betray yourself to chase their approval. Internal validation means you define your worth based on your values and integrity, not others' reactions. Practical application. Before making decisions, ask, does this align with my values and serve my well-being? Not, will this make people like me? When people are disappointed, remind yourself, their disappointment is their experience, not evidence of my failure. Mindset Shift 2. From unlimited to protected resources. Currently, you act like your time, energy, and generosity are unlimited. You give endlessly as if there's always more. But you're learning the hard way. There isn't. You're finite. When you give everything to everyone, nothing remains for you or your priorities. The shift. Your resources are precious and limited. Every yes to someone is a no to something else. When you say yes to helping a friend move, you're saying no to rest or working on your goals. When you say yes to covering a colleague's work, you're saying no to doing your own work well. Scarcity mindset about your resources isn't selfish. It's realistic. Practical application. Before saying yes, ask, what am I saying no to by saying yes to this? Make the trade-off explicit. If saying yes to this request means saying no to your sleep, health, or goals, that's important information. Mindset shift 3. From responsibility for others to responsibility to yourself first. Currently, you feel responsible for everyone's feelings, problems, and well-being. Someone's upset? You must fix it. Someone's struggling? You must save them. This responsibility is crushing and impossible. You can't control other people's emotions or lives. The shift. You're responsible for yourself first. Then you can choose to help others from surplus, not deficit. Like airplane oxygen masks. Put yours on first, then help others. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't save drowning people if you're drowning yourself. Taking care of yourself first isn't selfish. It's prerequisite to being able to help anyone else effectively. Practical application. When someone has a problem, pause before jumping to fix it. Ask, is this my problem to solve? Can they handle this themselves? Am I helping from abundance or trying to earn worth through fixing? Only help when you genuinely can without depleting yourself. Mindset shift 4. From conflict avoidance to conflict acceptance. Currently, you'll do anything to avoid conflict. Conflict feels dangerous, like it will lead to abandonment or destruction. So you keep the peace at all costs, even when the cost is your well-being. The shift. Conflict is a normal part of healthy relationships. Disagreement doesn't equal destruction. Boundaries create initial friction but lead to healthier dynamics. The people who can't handle your boundaries aren't good for you. The short-term discomfort of conflict is worth the long-term benefit of authenticity. Practical application. When you need to set a boundary or have a difficult conversation, acknowledge the fear, but do it anyway. Reframe conflict from, this will destroy the relationship, to, this will reveal whether the relationship is worth having. Healthy people can handle your boundaries. Toxic people can't. Let conflict be the filter. Mindset shift 5. From people-pleasing to self-pleasing. Currently, keeping others happy is your primary goal, even when it makes you miserable. Your needs are last on the list, if they make the list at all. The shift. Your happiness and peace matter as much as anyone else's. Not more, but definitely not less. Making yourself happy isn't selfish. It's self-care. You're allowed to make decisions that please you, even when they displease others. You're allowed to choose yourself. Practical application. Make at least one decision daily based solely on what you want, without considering what others want. Start small. Choose the restaurant you want, watch the show you want, take the route you prefer. Practice prioritizing your preference. Mindset shift 6. From permanence to evolution. Currently, you believe you must be the same person forever. If you've always said yes, you must keep saying yes. If you've always been available, you must stay available. Changing feels like betraying who you are. The shift. Growth requires change. Past you made decisions based on past circumstances. Current you can make different choices. You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to outgrow patterns that no longer serve you. Explaining your evolution to no one is optional. Practical application. When people say, you've changed, respond with, yes, I have. And that's okay. Don't apologize for evolution. Don't justify growth. Simply acknowledge it and continue forward. Mindset Shift 7. From universal likability to selective connection. Currently, you want everyone to like you. Universal approval is your goal. This is impossible and exhausting. The shift. You don't need everyone to like you. You need the right people to respect you. Quality over quantity. You'd rather be genuinely connected to a few people who love the real you than superficially liked by many who only know your performance. Practical application. When someone doesn't like your boundaries, remember, their disapproval is information. It tells you they valued your accommodation, not you. Let them go. Make room for people who respect your boundaries. As we close this chapter, work on internalizing these shifts. They won't happen overnight. You've spent years or decades with the old mindsets. Rewiring takes time and practice. But every time you choose the new mindset over the old, you strengthen the new neural pathways. Eventually, these shifts become automatic. Now let's get tactical with exactly how to set ruthless boundaries. Chapter 5. Setting ruthless boundaries. The practical framework mindset shifts are necessary but insufficient. You also need practical skills for setting and maintaining boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They're not punishment. Boundaries are standards for how you allow yourself to be treated and how you allocate your resources. In this chapter, you'll learn exactly how to establish ruthless boundaries that protect your peace. Let's start with boundary basics. A boundary is a limit you set to protect your time, energy, emotions, or physical space. It's information about what you will and won't accept. It's not about controlling others. It's about controlling your participation in relationships and situations. There are several types of boundaries. Time boundaries. How and when your time is available. Example: I don't take calls after 8 p.m. Emotional boundaries. What emotional responsibility you'll take. Example: I won't manage your emotions for you. Physical boundaries. Personal space and touch. Example: I don't like being hugged. Please don't. Material boundaries. Your possessions and money. Example: I don't lend money. Energy boundaries. What you'll invest effort in. Example: I won't be involved in drama. Here's the ruthless boundary framework. Step 1. Identify where you need boundaries. Notice where you feel resentful, drained, or taken advantage of. Those feelings signal boundary violations. Ask yourself, where am I saying yes but feeling no? Where am I overextended? Who takes more than they give? What situations exhaust me? The answers reveal where boundaries are needed. Step 2. Decide your boundary clearly. Be specific about what you will and won't do. Vague boundaries are unenforceable. I need space sometimes is vague. I need 2 hours alone every evening is clear. Don't be mean is vague. Don't raise your voice at me is clear. Define exactly what the boundary is. Step 3. Communicate the boundary directly. Don't hint. Don't expect people to read your mind. State the boundary clearly and calmly. Use this formula: I need/want/will boundary. This means specific behavior. Example: I need to protect my evenings. This means I won't be available for calls or texts after 7 p.m. unless it's an emergency. Step 4. Don't justify or over-explain. This is crucial. When you set a boundary, you might feel compelled to explain extensively why you need it, as if you need permission or agreement. You don't. No is a complete sentence. A brief explanation is fine if you choose, but lengthy justifications invite debate. I'm not available is sufficient. You don't owe anyone your reasons. Step 5. Prepare for pushback. People who benefited from your boundarylessness will push back. They'll guilt trip, argue, call you selfish, or claim you've changed. Expect this. Plan for it. Decide in advance that pushback won't change your boundary. Their discomfort is not your emergency. Step 6. Enforce the boundary consistently. This is where most people fail. They set a boundary, then cave when tested. Boundaries only work if enforced. If you say you won't take calls after 7 p.m., don't answer calls after 7 p.m. If you say you won't lend money, don't lend money even when you feel guilty. Consistency teaches people your boundaries are real. Step 7. Accept consequences. Some people will leave when you set boundaries. This is painful but necessary. People who only valued your accommodation will exit your life. Let them. You're making room for people who respect your boundaries. Now let's discuss specific boundary scenarios. Boundary with time vampires. People who monopolize your time with endless conversations, crises, or needs. Boundary. I have 20 minutes to talk. When time is up, I need to go now. Then actually go. Don't be held hostage by rudeness concerns. Your time matters. Boundary with favor askers. People who constantly ask for help but never reciprocate. Boundary. Before saying yes, consider the relationship balance. If it's one-sided, say, I'm not available to help with that. You don't owe explanation. If pushed, I'm focusing my energy on my own priorities right now, is sufficient. Boundary with emotional dumpers. People who treat you as their free therapist, dumping problems without caring about your capacity. Boundary. I don't have the emotional capacity for this right now. Have you considered talking to a professional? You're not their therapist. You're not obligated to process their emotions. Boundary with obligation creators. People who create obligations you never agreed to, then act like you owe them. Example. Someone buys you a gift, then expects something in return. Boundary. I didn't ask for this and don't feel obligated to reciprocate. Or simply don't reciprocate. You're not bound by obligations you didn't consent to. Boundary with guilt trippers. People who manipulate through guilt. I thought I could count on you. You're the only one who can help. Family helps each other. Boundary. Recognize guilt tripping as manipulation. Respond, I understand you're disappointed, but my answer is still no. Don't take responsibility for their feelings. Boundary with your own family. Often the hardest boundaries. Family believes they have unlimited access because you're related. They don't. Boundary. I love you, but I need to protect my peace. That means specific boundary. Family will claim blood obligates you. It doesn't. You owe family the same respect you owe anyone, but not unlimited access or sacrifice. Boundary at work. Professional settings require different language but same principles. Boundary with extra work. I don't have capacity for additional projects without deprioritizing my current commitments. Which should I deprioritize? This forces clarification and protects you from unlimited work dumping. Boundary with after-hours contact. I don't respond to work communication after 6 p.m. or on weekends unless it's a true emergency. Define what qualifies as emergency. Stick to it. Your time off is not company property. Here are advanced boundary techniques. The broken record. When someone keeps pushing after you've set a boundary, simply repeat it. I understand you'd like me to do this, but as I said, I'm not available. Don't engage with arguments. Just repeat the boundary. The info diet. You don't owe detailed information. Share less. The more you share, the more people feel entitled to input and negotiation. I have plans is sufficient. You don't need to detail what plans. I'm not available requires no explanation of why. The strategic pause. When asked for something, pause before responding. Let me check my schedule and get back to you. This prevents reflexive yes. Even a brief pause gives you time to consult your actual desires instead of people-pleasing autopilot. As we close this chapter, start implementing boundaries immediately. Pick one area where you're most drained and set one clear boundary there. Practice enforcing it for 1 week. Notice what happens. Most likely, the sky doesn't fall. People adjust, and you feel relief. That relief is your peace returning. Protect it ruthlessly. Now let's master the specific skill of saying no. Chapter 6. The art of saying no. Scripts and strategies. Saying no is the most important skill in your villain-era toolkit. Yet it's the skill most people-pleasers lack completely. You've spent your life saying yes reflexively, automatically, compulsively. Breaking this pattern requires deliberate practice with specific strategies and scripts. This chapter gives you exactly that. Let's start with why saying no is so hard. Psychologically, saying no triggers several fears. Fear of disappointing people. Fear of being disliked or rejected. Fear of missing out. Fear of seeming unhelpful or selfish. Fear of consequences. Anger, abandonment, retaliation. These fears feel overwhelming, so saying yes feels safer even when it's not. The truth is, most of these fears are exaggerated. Most people handle your no better than you expect. And the people who can't handle a simple no are people you shouldn't say yes to anyway. Healthy people respect boundaries. Unhealthy people punish them. Let your no be a filter. Here's the mindset reframe that makes saying no possible. Every yes to someone else is a no to yourself. When you say yes to babysitting when you need rest, you're saying no to your well-being. When you say yes to extra work when you're overwhelmed, you're saying no to quality on your core responsibilities. Make these trade-offs visible. Suddenly, saying no to others is saying yes to yourself. That reframe changes everything. Now let's discuss the anatomy of a good no. An effective no has 3 components: clarity, brevity, and finality. Clarity. Your answer is unambiguously no, not maybe later or I'll try. Brevity. Short responses are harder to argue with. Finality. Your tone indicates the decision is made, not open for negotiation. Here are scripts for different situations. When asked to help with something, I'm not able to do that. Period. If they ask why, I have other commitments. You don't need to detail those commitments. Your time is committed to you, your rest, your priorities. That counts. When invited to something you don't want to attend, thanks for thinking of me, but I won't be able to make it. If pushed for reasons, it just doesn't work for my schedule. Your schedule includes time you've allocated for rest or whatever you prefer doing. You're not lying. You're protecting information. When someone wants your time for a lengthy conversation, I only have 5 minutes right now. When 5 minutes is up, I need to go. Then actually go. Don't be held hostage by their continued talking. I really have to go now, talk to you later, and end the call or walk away. When asked to lend money, I don't lend money as a policy. You don't need to explain the policy or justify it. If pushed, I've had situations where lending money damaged relationships. I don't do it anymore. Boundaries don't require permission. When asked to do someone's work for them, I'm not available to take that on. At work, if it's your boss, I'm currently at capacity with X, Y, and Z. If this is priority, which of those should I deprioritize? At home, if it's family, that's something you'll need to handle yourself. When someone tries to dump their emotions, I don't have the capacity for this conversation right now. Have you talked to a therapist about this? You're not their unpaid therapist. Professional help is available for a reason. When someone guilt trips, I understand you're disappointed, but my answer is no. Don't defend, explain, or apologize for disappointing them. Their disappointment is their experience. You're not responsible for managing it. When someone says, "But you always help," I understand that's been the pattern, but I'm not available this time. You're allowed to change patterns. You don't owe consistency to your own detriment. Here's the critical rule: don't apologize for your no. "I'm sorry, but I can't" weakens your boundary. It implies you've done something wrong. You haven't. "I can't" or "I'm not able to" is sufficient without apology. You're making a decision about your resources. That doesn't require apology. Exception: you can apologize if you previously committed and are backing out. "I know I said yes, but I've realized I can't follow through. I apologize for the inconvenience." Then hold the boundary anyway. Breaking commitments occasionally is better than destroying yourself by keeping unsustainable commitments. Now let's discuss the delivery of no. Tone matters. Say no calmly, neutrally, with confidence. Not aggressive, not defensive, not apologetic. Just matter of fact. "I'm not available for that," delivered calmly, is harder to argue with than "I'm so sorry, I really wish I could, but I just don't think I can," delivered anxiously. Confident delivery signals your decision is final. Body language. When saying no in person, maintain eye contact, keep your body relaxed, don't fidget. Nervous body language undermines your words. Calm, grounded body language reinforces them. The pregnant pause. After you say no, stop talking. People pleasers tend to fill silence with justifications. Don't say you no, then stop. Let the other person respond. If they push back, use the broken record technique. Calmly repeat your no. "I understand you'd like me to help, but as I said, I'm not available." Here's how to handle specific pushback tactics. When they call you selfish, "I'm prioritizing my well-being, which is necessary for me." You don't need to defend against the selfish accusation. Owning healthy selfishness disarms the attack. When they say you've changed, "Yes, I'm setting boundaries I didn't have before." That's growth. Don't apologize for evolving. When they claim you don't care about them, "I do care about you, and I'm still not available to do this." Caring doesn't equal unlimited availability. When they bring up past favors, "I helped when I could. Right now I can't." You don't owe perpetual reciprocation for past kindness. Each request is evaluated on current capacity. When they make it about obligation, family, friendship, loyalty, "I value our relationship, and I'm still not able to do this." The relationship doesn't override your boundaries. When they threaten consequences, ending the relationship, being angry, telling others, "I'd be sorry to lose our relationship over this, but I understand if that's your choice." Call the bluff calmly. Let me share a practice exercise. For the next week, say no to at least one small request per day, even if you could technically say yes. Build the muscle of saying no when the stakes are low. Notice that people generally handle it fine. This builds confidence for bigger no's later. As we close this chapter, remember, no is a complete sentence. You're allowed to say no without justification. You're allowed to prioritize yourself. You're allowed to protect your peace. Practice these scripts. Internalize the mindset. Say no and mean it. Now let's discuss how to handle the guilt and pushback that inevitably follow. Chapter 7. Dealing with guilt and pushback. Staying strong. You've set boundaries. You've said no. Now comes the hard part. Dealing with the guilt, managing the pushback, and not caving when pressure intensifies. This chapter equips you with strategies for staying strong in your villain era, even when it's emotionally difficult. Let's start with guilt. Guilt is the weapon used against people pleasers. You've been conditioned to feel guilty when you prioritize yourself or disappoint others. This guilt feels crushing. It makes you want to apologize, reverse your decision, and return to accommodating. Understanding guilt is key to not letting it control you. First, distinguish healthy guilt from toxic guilt. Healthy guilt occurs when you've genuinely wronged someone, lied, betrayed trust, hurt someone intentionally. This guilt signals you need to make amends. Toxic guilt occurs when you've done nothing wrong but feel bad because you've been conditioned to feel responsible for others' emotions or you've violated people-pleasing conditioning. Most guilt you feel when setting boundaries is toxic guilt. You didn't wrong anyone by protecting your time. You didn't betray anyone by saying no. You didn't hurt anyone by prioritizing yourself. They're disappointed, yes. But their disappointment isn't your fault or your responsibility. This distinction is crucial. Disappointment is their experience, not your failure. Here's how to process toxic guilt without caving. First, acknowledge it. I feel guilty right now. Don't suppress the feeling. Second, question it. Did I do something actually wrong, or did I just violate my people-pleasing conditioning? Usually, it's the latter. Third, remind yourself of your why. I set this boundary because I need to protect my peace/time/energy. That's valid. Fourth, sit with the discomfort without acting. The guilt will pass. Feelings are temporary. If you don't act on the guilt, it fades. Fifth, reframe the guilt. Instead of, I feel guilty for saying no, try, I feel uncomfortable because I'm breaking old patterns. This discomfort means I'm growing. The discomfort isn't evidence you're wrong. It's evidence you're changing. Now let's discuss handling pushback from others. When you start setting boundaries, people will push back. Count on it. Here are the common pushback tactics and how to handle each. Tactic 1. Guilt tripping. I thought I could count on you. I guess I was wrong about our friendship. Family is supposed to help each other. Response. I understand you're disappointed. My answer is still no. Don't defend. Don't justify. Don't take responsibility for their guilt trip. It's manipulation, even if unconscious. Tactic 2. Anger. Raised voices, aggressive tone, punitive silence. Response. I need you to speak to me respectfully. If you can't, we'll continue this conversation later. Then disengage if they continue. Don't reward angry outbursts by caving. That teaches them anger works. Tactic 3. Emotional appeals. Crying, expressing hurt, appearing devastated. Response. I see this is upsetting to you. I'm still not able to change my decision. Their emotions are valid, but they don't override your boundary. You can acknowledge feelings without capitulating. Tactic 4. Negotiation. What if I do X? Then will you do Y? Can you at least do this smaller version? Response. I appreciate you trying to find a solution, but I'm not available for any version of this. Don't let them negotiate your boundary into oblivion. Tactic 5. Social pressure. Involving others. Everyone thinks you're being selfish, telling others to convince you. Response. I understand others have opinions. My decision stands. Don't argue with third-party opinions. Your boundary isn't a democracy. Tactic 6. Comparative guilt. You helped Sarah but not me? Response. Each situation is different. My capacity varies. This time I'm not available. You don't owe identical responses to everyone. Your resources fluctuate. Tactic 7. Future threats. Don't expect me to help you later. This will damage our relationship. Response. I'd be sorry if that's the consequence, but I understand that's your choice. Call bluffs calmly. If the relationship can't survive one boundary, it wasn't healthy anyway. Here's your tactical response to any pushback. Stay calm, don't defend, repeat your boundary, disengage if needed. Calm. Elevated emotions cloud judgment. Your calm creates clarity. Don't defend. Defending invites attack. You don't need to justify boundaries. Repeat. Use broken record technique. Disengage. If pushback intensifies, we're not making progress. I need to step away from this conversation. Then actually step away. Now let's discuss the extinction burst phenomenon. When you first set boundaries, pushback often intensifies before it improves. This is called an extinction burst in psychology. When a behavior that previously worked stops working, people escalate before giving up. They push harder, guilt trip more intensely, get angrier. This is their unconscious attempt to restore the old dynamic where their pressure made you cave. If you cave during the extinction burst, you've taught them that extreme pressure works. You've made future boundary setting harder. If you hold firm during the extinction burst, they learn your boundaries are real. The pushback decreases. This is why consistency is crucial. The hardest pushback happens early. If you survive it without caving, it gets easier. Here's how to cope emotionally during this difficult period. First, build your support system. Connect with people who understand and support your boundaries. Find communities online or in person of people practicing boundary setting. You need support from people who won't guilt you for protecting yourself. Second, practice self-compassion. You're doing something difficult. You're breaking lifelong patterns. You'll make mistakes. You'll feel uncomfortable. That's okay. Be kind to yourself. Talk to yourself like a supportive friend would. This is hard. You're doing great. Keep going. Third, remember your why. Write down why you're setting boundaries. When guilt hits, read it. I'm setting boundaries because I was burning out. Because I wasn't living my own life. Because I was resentful. Because I deserve peace. This reconnects you to your purpose. Fourth, celebrate wins. Every time you hold a boundary, that's a victory. Acknowledge it. I said no and didn't cave. I'm proud of myself. Small wins accumulate into major transformation. Fifth, expect discomfort. You're not aiming for comfort. You're aiming for growth and peace. Short-term discomfort from boundaries leads to long-term peace. Short-term comfort from people-pleasing leads to long-term misery. Choose your hard. Let me share a story about surviving pushback. When Emma started her villain era, her mother escalated dramatically. Guilt trips intensified. Crying phone calls. Accusations of not loving her family. Involving other relatives to pressure Emma. It was brutal. Emma almost caved multiple times. The guilt was crushing. But Emma held firm. She repeated her boundaries calmly. She limited contact when her mother became abusive. She didn't defend or justify. After 3 months of this extinction burst, her mother's tactics stopped working. She realized Emma's boundaries were real. The relationship entered a new normal: respectful communication, reasonable requests, no manipulation. Emma's relationship with her mother actually improved because it became honest and boundaried. That's the pattern: intense pushback, then acceptance if you hold firm. The people who genuinely care about you will adjust. The people who don't will leave. And their leaving is a gift. They've shown you they only valued what you did for them, not who you are. As we close this chapter, prepare for pushback. Expect it. Plan for it. Don't let it surprise or overwhelm you. You're changing relationship dynamics. That creates friction. The friction is temporary. Your peace is permanent if you protect it. Now let's bring everything together in the conclusion. Conclusion. Your villain ERA is your liberation. We've covered extraordinary ground in this audiobook. From understanding what the villain era actually means and why it's not about cruelty but about self-protection, to exploring the psychology of people-pleasing and why you develop this destructive pattern, from recognizing why being too nice destroys your relationships, career, health, and dreams, to implementing the mindset shifts that make boundary setting possible, from learning the practical framework for setting ruthless boundaries that protect your peace, to mastering the art of saying no with confidence and clarity, and finally learning how to handle the inevitable guilt and pushback without caving. You now possess the complete framework for entering your villain era. You understand both the why and the how. The question is, will you actually do it? Because knowledge without action is worthless. The transformation happens through implementation, not information. Let me give you a clear 30-day villain era implementation plan. Days 1 to 7. Identify your biggest boundary violations. Where are you most drained, resentful, or taken advantage of? Write them down. Choose one to address first. Days 8 to 14. Set one clear boundary in that area. Communicate it directly. Prepare for pushback. Practice your no scripts. Days 15 to 21. Hold that boundary despite guilt and pressure. Use the strategies from this audiobook. Don't cave. Let people adjust. Days 22 to 30. Add a second boundary in another area. Continue holding the first. Notice how you feel as your peace returns. After 30 days, you'll have proven to yourself that boundaries work. People adjust or leave. The sky doesn't fall, and you feel relief. That relief is your true self breathing again after being suffocated by people-pleasing. Protect that feeling ruthlessly. Now imagine where you'll be 1 year from now if you stay committed to your villain era. You've established boundaries in all major areas of your life. You say no regularly and comfortably. You prioritize yourself without guilt. You've lost some relationships, yes, but they were one-sided and draining. The relationships that remain deepened because they're now based on honesty and mutuality, not performance and accommodation. Your career improved because you stopped diluting your efforts across everyone's priorities and focused on excellence in your core work. Your health improved because you're no longer sacrificing sleep, exercise, and well-being to accommodate others. Your goals progressed because you protected time for what matters to you. Most importantly, you respect yourself again because you stopped betraying yourself daily. 5 years from now, you can barely remember the person who said yes to everything and no to themselves. Your villain era transformed into your authentic era. You're no longer trying to be the villain. You're simply someone with healthy boundaries. And that's normal. You've built a life around your values, not others' expectations. You're surrounded by people who respect your boundaries because the ones who didn't respect them are long gone. Here's what makes the villain era different from any other self-help concept. It's not about becoming better for others. It's about becoming unavailable to people who want to use you. It's not about improving yourself to earn love. It's about loving yourself enough to require respect. It's not about being perfect. It's about being honest, even when honesty makes you unlikable. The traditional path says, be nice, accommodate, sacrifice, and eventually people will value you. But that path leads to depletion, resentment, and being taken for granted. The villain era path says, protect your peace, set boundaries, prioritize yourself, and the right people will respect you. That path leads to peace, authenticity, and relationships based on mutuality. Let me address the final fear you might have. What if I become too selfish? What if I lose my kindness? Here's the truth. People who worry about being too selfish are never in danger of actual selfishness. Genuinely selfish people don't worry about it. The fact that you're concerned means you have empathy and consideration. Your villain era won't erase those qualities. It'll just add boundaries and self-respect to them. You can be kind and boundaried. You can be generous and selective. You can care about people and still say no. These aren't contradictions. They're the marks of healthy relationships. The kindness that comes from choice and abundance is more valuable than kindness that comes from compulsion and depletion. I want to leave you with one final insight. Your people-pleasing served a purpose. It protected you when you were vulnerable. It helped you survive environments where boundaries weren't safe. It earned you love when love was conditional. You developed this pattern for good reasons. Thank your people-pleasing self for trying to keep you safe. And now, release it. You're not that vulnerable child anymore. You're an adult with agency. You don't need to earn love through sacrifice. You don't need to manage everyone's emotions to stay safe. You don't need to accommodate endlessly to be worthy. You're worthy inherently. Your needs matter. Your peace matters. Your time matters. You matter. Enter your villain era. Not forever, just for now. Long enough to build boundaries that protect you. Long enough to learn that people adjust or leave, and both outcomes are okay. Long enough to remember who you are when you're not performing for everyone else. Being the villain in someone else's story might be the most heroic thing you ever do for yourself. Because that story where you're the villain? It's the story told by someone who wanted unlimited access to you without respecting your humanity. Their story isn't truth. It's perspective. And their perspective doesn't define you. Your story is different. In your story, you're the hero who finally rescued the person who needed it most. Yourself. You're the protagonist who stopped waiting for permission to prioritize their own well-being. You're the main character who chose peace over approval, authenticity over performance, and self-respect over people-pleasing. Stop sacrificing yourself. Stop being available to everyone except yourself. Stop saying yes when your whole soul screams no. Enter your villain era. Set ruthless boundaries. Say no without guilt. Prioritize yourself unapologetically. Protect your peace at all costs. The people who matter will understand. The people who don't understand don't matter. And the life you build when you finally put yourself first will be worth every uncomfortable conversation, every guilt trip you survived, and every person who called you selfish. Welcome to your villain era. Your peace. Your boundaries. Your life. Finally.